Mr. Pete Elliott, and we're going to be discussing the Cuba blockade or the quarantine of Cuba. First question, were you ready to come home from Cuba?
Certainly was. We was at sea for about 60 days. When you're at sea on board a ship, you work almost night and day. And many times I worked 20, 24 hours straight, and I definitely was ready to come home.
Question number 2, did you have any friends on the aircraft carrier or destroyer?
Yes, I had plenty of friends, and it's a little bit difference between an aircraft carrier and a destroyer. On an aircraft carrier, you got about 5,000 people on that. It's like a small city. And on the destroyer, we only had like 100 or 90 to 100, and you get to know everybody. It's more like a family-oriented situation on a smaller ship.
Question number 3, was your life ever threatened at all during this time?
No, but there was a few sleepless nights because you never knew what was going to happen at this particular time. They on the very brink of the Third World War, and anyhow, it ended positive, but anything could happen.
Question number 4, what was America's goal to achieve through the Cuba blockade?
The main purpose of the Cuban blockade was to keep Russia from bringing these missiles in and basing them in Cuba. They already had some in there, and the way this was set up, they were sending these freighters or other ships over and bringing a lot of other missiles. And their particular plan was that they had missiles to reach any city in the United States, almost any large city at this particular time. But and the blockade was set up to keep them from bringing in the rest of the missiles. And as the end result, they got all the missiles out of there.
Question number 5, were you ever called a hero during any point of time?
Not necessarily a hero, but we had a few of our sailors aboard ship that got a commendation. I did get this commendation here. This is on the Quarantine of Cuba Certificate of Participation, 22nd of October to the 4th of December 1962, presented to Daniel Pete Elliott, Electronic Technician Radar, 3rd Class, U.S. Navy. I might mention farther here that we raised a Russian submarine, and there's sailing right beside the ship, our ship there, the Charles P. Cecil. And they had 30 contacts on different submarines, and this is the only one that they raised, and I was kind of proud of that. But we did have a few of our sonar people that did get a medal for this.
Question number 6, what was the name of the ship you were aboard?
The name of the ship was USS Charles P. Cecil. Here's a picture of it. And the number on it was 835, and the nomenclature on it was a DDR. This meant this was a destroyer, a radar destroyer ship. Their main purpose is for surveillance and also anti-submarine warfare. And the nickname of this destroyer is called a tin can because it floats in water like a tin can. Where a destroyer will move quite a bit in small waves, aircraft carrier won't hardly move at all. And it's a very versatile type of ship and all type of warfare.
Question number 7. Did you have any special job or jobs that you had to carry out while you were aboard the Charles P. Cecil?
My rate was electronic technician, and I worked on the radars and communication, transmitters and receivers. And anytime something was down, you had to keep working on it until you got it back up in order to work. I did have a little experience working with sonar, being on this particular detail, this blockade, but my main job was with the radar systems.
Question number 8, what type of ship were you on?
Well, as I said before, this is a destroyer, and the destroyer has a lot of anti-submarine warfare on it, and also it has 5-inch guns that will shoot not missiles, but rockets, shells from bombardment, and we had a set of 3-inch guns. We had 2 sets of 5-inch guns, one on the forward of the ship and one on the aft. And we had a set of 3-inch guns on the forward bow of the ship.
Number 9. Who was the captain of your ship?
Well, this is a unique situation. As I said before, the name of the ship I was on was USS Charles P. Cecil. And the captain, at this particular time, his name is Charles P. Rozier, R-O-Z-I-E-R. And I thought that was a coincidence situation at that particular time.
Question number 10. What was your naval title or your rank?
Well, it might be best if I show you the signal I used to wear on my uniform. This is, I was a 2nd class petty officer, and that stands for electronic technician. And these, they call Heish marks. And you get one of those for every 4 years in the service. And I've seen some people have maybe 5 or 6 of these, like if they have 25 or 30 years in it. They have them all up and down their sleeve. And of course, you go higher than 2nd class. You go up to 3rd class, and then you go higher than that, and what they call a chief petty officer. This is called petty officer, and some people call that, a little humor there, and call that a crow, but that's an eagle.
Number 11. Did your ship destroy any other ships, or was it a part of an attack on any other ships?
No, but we did come in contact with a Russian submarine. This particular time they had about 30 contacts with submarines, and ours is the only one that sailed right beside the submarine that came up. And how this happened was we were escorting a tanker. A tanker is a ship that refuels the other ships that was in the blockade, and we was escorting them. And on our radar we got a blip, and that meant that there was a Russian submarine up on the surface charging its batteries up. You had to come up to charge the batteries every so often. And so we lost the blip, and it went up down in the water, and then we picked it up on our sonar system. Well, at this particular time we stayed with it for about 2 or 3 days, and finally had to come back up at the daytime. And on that next morning we all got to see the Russian submarine with the hammer and the sickle symbol on the conning tower, and we were sailing right beside it.
Question number 12. How long were you in service?
I was in the service in almost all branches, all services, made up of regular service and reserves. And I was in the regular Navy for 4 years, and I was in the reserves for 2 years. Total 6 years.
Question number 13. What was the Cuba blockade about?
The Cuban blockade was about, well, every conflict you have a little difference in politics, and the Cuban blockade started out, before this all came about, Cuba was controlled by a dictator named Bastille. And Castro overthrew him, and they had a revolution, and he got tied in with Russia and became a communist government. And then, later on, Russia wanted to put missiles in Cuba, and that was the main problem with the blockade. That's the reason of what brought all this about, the blockade, as I mentioned before, to keep the missiles out of Cuba.
Question number 14. How many other people were on this Charles P. Cecil?
We averaged about 90 to 100 people. And like I explained about the rates, we had electricians on there, we had gunner mates, radars, people, we had boatswain mates. We had all different kind of rates you could imagine, and to keep the ship running. We had people working in the engine room, keeping the boilers going. You had to fire up the boilers to heat the water to get steam to make the turbines go. So we could, so it was made up of a lot of different types of people. We even had people in there that you could get a haircut. You had what we call a ship store. You had people run a ship store. You get down there and buy goodies or You could buy a watch or a camera. You could buy anything you wanted to. And it's very interesting, just like being home every night.
Question number 15. Did you serve your country in any other military force?
No, just the United States Navy.
Question number 16. Did you ever receive a badge for your service?
I got a badge. In fact, I got two of them, and you get one every 2 years. It's called a Good Conduct Medal. I got a couple of those, and that's any ribbons I got as far as medals.
Question number 17. Were you ever a part of a special mission in the Navy?
No special mission. No.
So you're just electronic task.
Electronic technician. Anything interesting about my job at this particular time, back in those days, they didn't have the cell phones and all this stuff, and I was in charge, as I said earlier, on the communication, and I used to set up the transmitter. We had these phones almost like a walkie-talkie, and you had to call a Marine base where they had a tower, and we could reach them, and we let all those sailors, if we was at sea for a very long time, like 30 or 40 days, we'd let them take turns. They could call home and talk to their family, and I thought that was interesting. I was in charge of that.
Did you ever have to land on Cuba?
No, but we had training sessions down in Cuba around, I'm sure you've heard of Guantanamo Bay, and the short version of it is Gitmo. We used to go down there and we'd pull in there for liberty or different things, and I remember one time I was there one week, and you could rent these horses and ride them up on the mountainside, and several of us sailors used to ride up there, and you could see Havana on the other side of the mountain. They had a fence up there where you couldn't go across.
Can you explain liberty to us a little bit more?
Liberty is a situation, a lot of ships have a 3 or 4 duty section, and this is how I got involved in this Cuban crisis. Liberty, if you're not on Liberty, usually you have the duty section. But you got what you call a 48-hour duty section, a 72-hour duty section. What it boils down to, you either have to have the duty on a Saturday, on one weekend, or the next weekend you have it on Sunday, and the next weekend you'll be free. So that means you're off Saturday and Sunday, and then the fourth weekend you'd have it on both days. For this particular weekend, I had duty on Sunday, and that's when we got the call to go out for this Cuban blockade. It was a real rush type of order, and so anyhow, then when we get called or we go out like this, sometimes after you're at sea for a long time, they'll pull in a port or someplace and let you go on liberty. It means you can go off the ship and go ashore. You can go to the shore and go to the movie and watch movies or do whatever you want to.
Question number 19. What were the sleeping and eating conditions like on the ship?
Well, that's a funny thing. The sleeping, we slept in bunks or racks, and I used to work a lot at night, and I'll put these two items together that you mentioned about food stuff. At midnight they have what they call mid-rations. You could go down there and get a bowl of soup or a sandwich or something if you was working all night or during the night. And you had your 3 meals in a day. You had your breakfast and your lunch and your supper or dinner in the evening. You had to get in line and take turns to go down on the mess deck, because the mess deck that's where you eat. And you could sit 4 people at a table, and they had little bars on the table to keep your trays from sliding off. So don't forget, you're still at sea out in the ocean, and you're getting this what we call pitch and roll or rocking, because the waves are going like that. And I used to laugh about it. I used to tell people the story about be sitting there eating a bowl of soup, and your soup would slosh on somebody else's tray, and they're slosh on yours if it was real rough. But most of the time it was calm, and you didn't have any problem. The food I thought was excellent. We had what we call brunch on Sunday morning. You get your choice what you want. Usually you get your eggs however you wanted them, and steak and eggs on Sunday morning. I really enjoyed that food.
Do you remember a distinct meal you had while you were at sea?
Usually like on a Thanksgiving or something, you have a special meal. And I had a friend of mine who was a baker, and he'd bake. I'd do a little electronic work for him sometimes, and he always looked out for me. He was a real nice friend of mine. And I'd wake up every morning, he'd have maybe a cinnamon roll or something for me up there on my bunk. And I made him a little reading lamp so he could read at night. But he worked at night, and I worked in the daytime most of the time. But all the meals are good, and we did have special meals on certain holidays and things. It was really enjoyable, I thought.
Question number 20. What did you do for fun on the ship? Or was there any fun allowed on the ship?
Yes, we had two things. One of the fun things we had, we used to have a movie every night. After we had dinner or supper, we'd go down and we'd have movie call. And if you didn't have the watch or duty, or if you didn't have to run some equipment or something, you could go down and watch a movie. And we had a little drink machine. You could get you a drink, and have some popcorn or something, watch a movie at night. And we'd watch a movie about every night, and then you could only watch so many movies, and then we'd have to trade our movies with somebody else on another ship. And so they give us their movies, and they take our movies, and we take turns watching different movies. That was most of our entertainment. And on Sunday, we had church services, and I was in charge of the church services, and we used to have church service every Sunday morning. We'd go down to mess deck and have our church services.
Well, that concludes this interview of the Cuban blockade. I appreciate your...
Thank you, Mr. Strickland. I enjoyed being here today.
Thank you, sir.